Hopping on for another video. This one, I'm not outside, I'm not walking and talking, which I do prefer. And I kind of meant to do that yesterday. I went for like a jog and then I was like, maybe gonna do this, but I ran low on time. I don't love walking like for a long time, like at night, even, my neighborhood's pretty fine, but like, I don't know. I just feel like less good about that, so I'm doing it here in the morning. It is nearly 9 in the morning. Um, I woke up like feeling moderately refreshed, which is kind of rare these days because allergy season always like fucks up my sleeping. Does that do that to anyone else? Like, it's not because of sniffles or whatever that my sleep is bad. It's just because like I feel like the allergies like activate some kind of like immune response where I just have trouble calming down. And I'm like more apt to wake up early and like just falling asleep is harder. Anyway, let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments if that's your experience, because it's certainly mine. And like, I was like, I have missed maybe a few weeks of doing these. My intention is to do them weekly, but um and I wrote some notes. It has been very much on my mind, like what to talk about. A little bit more pre-planning here. Will I do bullet points? No, that's beyond me, but I will write a little note in my Gmail that I mail to myself. And yeah, I don't know. This one occurred to me this morning actually. The topic is, because it's Autism Awareness Month and it was Autism Awareness Day the other day. And I was just like I wrote down like, what is autism really? Like, what is it? Like, because a lot of people don't really know. Excuse me. And in a way, I don't blame them because it's like complicated topic. And it is like, it's one of those things that's also kind of like many, diagnoses that has to do like with not just like the body, but like the body and mind, the brain, etc. Like it's one of these labels that is kind of ever shifting, you know? And haters may say that that's not true, that there's always been autistic people, blah, blah, blah. And that also may be true, but I do feel personally that how they say like what do they say? Like psychosocial, psychosocial, you know, conditions, disorders. They say it's like your body, bio, psycho, like your psychology, I guess, social, the society and the family, relatedly. And these are the kind of the factors that kind of combine and form a person, and everything is important, in that process. Like no one factor is like more important than others, and I would go so far as to say that the bio of that is the least important in a lot of cases. Not every case, but like in a lot of cases, it's kind of more. I think the environment has a little bit more impact onto how one turns out than your biology, but only slightly more, I would say. That's what I'm gonna go with based on my studies observations. And anyway, what is autism? So, you can look at the DSM, there are real definitions you can look at, and you can just go with those and call it a day. But I feel that it is not adequate, And like I sort of alluded to earlier, like, some people will say, like, oh, it's always been a thing. But I really don't think it's always been a thing, like, per se, as such, Um, and, um, and yeah, when I think about it like related to myself. Yeah, I have a diagnosis, you know. Um, and I think about like right now I'm just gonna talk about myself and then I'll bring it back. I'll zoom back out or something, but I'll just talk about myself as a case study, you know, so to speak. Myself, like I was born into a family, you know, that was for different reasons not really able to um, support my development in ways that were like optimal at all, you know? And then we were immigrants, so there was like a sort of like sink or swim type of dynamic that occurs in that, like a kind of lost in the shuffle sort of effect, where a lot of immigrant kids sort of have to become real scrappy really early and sort of like do their own thing, you know? And so, I mean, that can be fine, but I think that, like, you know, kids that are, like, born more sensitive, you know, as I was referring to in my second video. And actually, I said it wrong, like, the label of that. It's actually, or, like, the phenomenon. It's called, like, what is it? Like, fuck. Sensory sensitivity. Like, uh, I I feel like I need to like fucking look this up because now I feel annoyed. Okay, it's called sensory processing sensitivity. And, you know, this term was coined by the psychologist Elaine Aron. You can look it up. They've done studies. She and her husband, they're both research like psychology researchers. They've done studies. It's a thing, you know, and it is like you know, in this case, I would say it's more biological than anything else. You know, it obviously has implications for your mind and everything, but so yeah, I was born this way. Like, you know, I'm a sensitive person. You know, like I have a lower threshold for sensory environments, you know what I mean? Like I get overwhelmed by things. It's like the majority of people don't, but I do. You know what I mean? That's like what it means, you know? It's just I am the 15 to 20% of people in the species that are like this, you know what I mean? So I was born this way. And, you know, and then I was born with these other circumstances, right? Of like, you know, my family being like, coming from like, you know, a neglectful slash abusive lineage, let's say. And so they were not, you know, I think that's the thing about being sensitive versus being like less sensitive. Um, you know, in this way, I'm saying, you know, we are all sensitive people with much love to give, but like, you know what I mean? Like in a literal sense, you know, is like when you are like, I'm gonna say hardier, you know, like less sensitive. When you're like a hardier type person, the majority, right? Like you kind of already have like a built-in protection, like you kind of have like more of like a bigger crust, like that like protects you from the world, you know, and from bad parenting and from bad environments, from like negativity. Like you kind of have this like like a protection, like there's like a kind of like already like a built-in integrity, you could say, to like your body, your soul, your mind, and stuff like that. And I mean, we have this too as sensitive people, but like our crust is thinner. So we're like more impacted by like bad environments and good ones too. So that's the beautiful thing about like being sensitive, you know? So I was born this way, family not optimal, difficult circumstance of like moving to this new country at age 4. That's a very formative time to be alive, you know? So I'm over here struggling, age 4, learning a new language. It was like a big task, you know? It was like a lot, you know, working against me, so to speak. I mean, children are very adaptable, but they're also like me, they also are not. Like kids love comfort, they love routine. They need that, They're just figuring things out. They don't need like chaos and like negativity and being like punished by big stupid people. Like they don't need that. Kids need understanding, gentleness, so they can find their own way. That's the way of kids. So I do feel like that these different factors and like my natural, I am sensitive, but I'm also shy, like naturally. And I think that that's always been a part of me. And so I feel like it's like I'm not like the boldest type of character, although I've grown in my boldness over the years. So all these factors combine to like, cause like a kind of a deep alienation feeling between like me and my peers. That started quite young. So I guess I'm saying in my case, I do buy the diagnosis, but on the other hand, I'm like, well, how would anyone with a similar temperament to me and a similar family to me and a similar circumstance turn out? Is like probably a lot like me. So there's all these things that I mean, like, I think it has to be said that a lot of autistic people come from families where they were narcissistically abused. And so, like, they didn't have that, God-given right, so to speak, to, like, develop their ego to a level that is more normative. Like, I didn't have that opportunity, not really. My ego was not nurtured, not really, in a way of like a normal family. Um, and so I'm having to do that work now, or like over my adult life. And I see that as an issue with a lot of autistic. I know a lot of autistic people, you know, actually from like community work and this. But and I do think that like a sort of sense of self is something that is a challenge for a lot of autistic people, although they do, I feel like most have an internal sense of self, but to externalize that sense of self and like interact in the world is can be challenging, because I mean, I think the other thing is like autistic people are, as such, are, naturally different. Like we're just like ourselves. And like everyone else in the culture is like trying to be normal. That's like the kind of like the dividing line. It's like autistic people as such can be said to be like themselves, right? But the others are not. And so it's like, as a person who's like naturally has this inclination, um like fitting in will be challenging, because that's not our natural inclination. Um, and indeed, like it's an artificial society. It's like we're actually really not designed to live in these mass societies. Like our physiology for like most of our existence on the planet has been oriented towards small groups. And so it's like in order to have these mass societies, it's like it's almost like there has over time developed a need to have this concept of normal, and which is a sort of like an average type of person. And it is in fact a myth, because I mean it's partly true, but it's a myth because it's like, yeah, there's gonna be the majority type person, and that's real. But the fact that everyone needs to be that way is a myth, because we are a species like any other, and there needs to be is required to have a variation there. It's we're not like clones. That's not nature. It's not nature's way, you know? And Yeah, so fuck, I'm like losing my train of thought slightly. Let me take a break. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like every autistic person has their own story, you know what I mean? It's like for some, it may be more like genetics. For some people, it may be more poor circumstance. And I mean, I think that like, I just feel that it's like a very heterogeneous, heterogeneous group in the sense where like it's all united by like social deficits or something. But like, what does that even mean? Like, it's like social skills can be learned, but whose social skills, right? Like this mythical normal. And I mean, and I'm not saying like autistics are just a separate species and we need to only be together and like have our own social skills and whatever, but like we are all born ourselves, you know? Like we are all born ourselves. It's just that like the majority gets on the bandwagon of wanting to be like other people and understanding that that's required for society at an earlier stage and like believes it more wholeheartedly because they can, because that's how their brains are wired, you know? More so. And yeah, we're a remarkably adaptable species. We've adapted to like a weird ass, very unnatural system where like young families are completely isolated. For we're not designed to be raised that way, and it's like the fact of like that like children are isolated in these in these like tiny family units. They're not raised with like extended families usually. They're not raised with like a lot of other children. I mean, yeah, kids go to school, but like we are really like designed to be like essentially raised by other children and for the most part like hang out with other children of like mixed ages like day to day and like learn from them, it's not like in these like hunter-gatherer societies mothers and fathers aren't like playing with toddlers all day. That's simply not what it's happening. Of course the mother is there, at reach, or a responsible adult, whatever. People are there, but it's not like let's play like the way I see that like people do here in the society. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with playing with your children. People should play with their children, but I'm saying like adults are not like supposed to be like all day companions to little kids. And I see, for example, like nannies. I know it's a job, but it's like, or whatever, just like young mothers, whatever, just like pushing their kids around. Like, that's cool, but like, that's so boring for them. Like, they're not getting to like develop their bodies. And it's not like, oh, take your kid to like the class for 1 hour with like random kids or something. Like, no, you're supposed to like have a rich, social, beautiful life like ASAP. Like well, this is how we're designed, and the fact that some people would be labeled as autistic because they didn't adapt to that because they are more influenced by this fucked up sick society, and like we have internalized this isolation more so than other people because we have a thinner skin, so to speak, is completely understandable, utterly understandable. So, I have to say, and this isn't to be a denialist or anything like this, that I have a suspicious eye towards autism a lot of the time. And, like, then you could say the people that have, like, super high support needs that are, like, super disabled, you know, as such, need around the clock care and things like this or whatever. I mean, these are severe developmental issues, and they also have a biosocial origin. In a lot of cases more bio, but like, these kids were born for a reason. Like, it's like I read this article a long time ago, but it's like the journey from like the fucking sperm to the egg to the fucking egg to the fetus to the fetus to the child is like a long ass epic ass like Lord of the Rings ass journey. like the whole time you're a fetus, like your mother's body is fighting against your ass. Your mother's immune system is like on high alert, bitch. Like they want you out of there if possible. So like the fact that you were born is really a miracle in a lot of ways, and and that's meaningful. These people exist for a reason, and like the fact that society would treat them like extraneous or like burdensome or this is a major flaw in the works, and I, I don't really see why. Yeah, we're not gonna become hunter gatherers, all of us, anytime soon, but like there's no reason why we can't shape the society in a way that like would be more humane, more realistic, more suitable. And like there's no reason why these people that are very disabled need to be shut away. We need to like find real ways to integrate them into our lives. Like, there's no reason why, other than simple prejudice and just ignorance, basically, that we can't, like, work. Like, I can't have a job, like, alongside a person that's, like, severely disabled and they're doing something extremely valuable and useful. And maybe they just do something an hour a day that's very valuable. And maybe I do something 5 hours a day that's very valuable and from home or from fucking there or the workplace or whatever. Like, there's no reason why we cannot be more flexible if it is gonna enable people to be a part of things. And I think that that's really like what we need to like think about these days is, well, this is completely impossible now practically, but like, given the circumstance, but it's like if if all things were okay, the next step in our evolution as a society is we need to include everyone. That's all.